Captain America Civil War was the highest-grossing movie of 2016 and a truly epic installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise. It saw the Avengers split down the middle, as Cap and Iron Man's views on the Sokovia Accords conflicted with one another. As you would expect, it was also filled with Easter eggs, references, and the kind of intricate details that fans love to go in search of. In this video, we'll take you through 10 of the best examples of them that you may just have missed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of Screen Rant's great new videos.
The only matter I do not take seriously, boy, is you. Your politics bore me.
Damion Poitier. One of the most memorable moments in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe came in the mid-credit scene of 2012's The Avengers. The commander of the Chitauri army, known as the Other, was seen talking to a mystery overlord, who was sat on a large throne somewhere in the deepest and darkest reaches of space. Of course, that mystery overlord turned towards the camera and was revealed to be none other than Thanos. That prune-like purple chin was unmistakable, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was turned on its head as a result. Back then, however, it wasn't Josh Brolin playing the Mad Titan. For that brief mid-credits cameo, a little-known actor called Damion Poitier portrayed him. In Captain America Civil War, Poitier returned to the MCU, this time as one of Brock Rumblow's mercenaries in the movie's early battle sequence in Lagos. But he was certainly easy to miss, as he didn't get much screen time. It was, however, a pretty cool nod to an actor who must obviously be disappointed that the character he originally brought to the big screen is now going to be played by someone else in what might just be the biggest film of all time.
Margaret Carter was known to most as a founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I just knew her as Aunt Peggy.
Sharon's speech. 2014's Captain America: The Winter Soldier revealed that Peggy Carter was still alive, but being well into her 90s at the time, was hanging on to this mortal coil for dear life. She was clearly at death's door, so it was no surprise to find out she had passed away in Captain America Civil War. Her off-screen death resulted in her on-screen funeral, where Steve Rogers finally learned what pretty much everybody else already knew, that Sharon Carter was her niece. In her touching eulogy for the lady she knew only as Aunt Peggy, Sharon quoted a philosophy that she learned from her aunt, the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. But it wasn't just any old eulogy written for the film. It was actually one that any true fan of Captain America should remember from the pages of 2007's Amazing Spider-Man 537, in which Cap delivered the exact same speech to Spider-Man. You remember, it's the one that goes, "Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree. Look them in the eye and say, no, you move." It's actually a passage written by Mark Twain, but Peggy apparently took credit for it anyway.
Tell me, Becky. You've seen a great deal, haven't you?
I don't want to talk about it.
D23. As everybody knows, Marvel Studios is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, and in essence, the movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are actually Disney offerings. Disney have, of course, kept their iconic animated characters out of the MCU, but the studio isn't completely above the idea of using MCU movies for a little subliminal marketing. In Captain America Civil War, when Bucky Barnes was chased down, captured, and placed in containment, his holding cell had some pretty significant markings on it. To explain, the holding cell was apparently taken from Deck 23, with D and 23 placed prominently on the outside of it, and it was very purposefully facing the camera for most of the scene. While casual fans can be forgiven for failing to recognize the very clear reference to Disney's annual D23 event, those people who keenly attend it every year would most certainly have known what was going on. D23 is, in fact, the name of the official fan club for the Walt Disney Company, which was founded in 2009. But it's indeed known mainly for its biennial exposition event, the D23 Expo, where the studio's upcoming films are unveiled and detailed.
Stop.
The Winter Soldier trigger words. In Captain America Civil War, Bucky Barnes was reactivated as the Winter Soldier by using a series of trigger words. The complete list was longing, rusted, 17, daybreak, furnace, 9, benign, homecoming, 1, and freight car. They may seem like a bunch of random words, but we think each one actually has a hidden meaning. Longing refers to the fact that Bucky is longing for the past, wanting to go back to a time before he was under Hydra's control. Rusted refers to what Bucky would be without Hydra, very old and near death, especially his metal arm. 17 refers to the year he was born, 1917. Daybreak is symbolic of Bucky's new life, being reborn as the Winter Soldier. Furnace is a little tricky, but it could refer to where Bucky would end up if he defected from Hydra, or where his metal arm was forged. 9 refers to the number of heads the Hydra has in Greek mythology. Homecoming refers to Spider-Man Homecoming, with Civil War being the movie in which the Webbed Wonder was introduced in the MCU. 1 refers to Bucky being the first Winter Soldier, and Freight Car refers to the vehicle Bucky fell from in 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger.
Did you run facial recognition yet?
What do I look like?
I don't know. I've been picturing a redhead.
You must be thinking of someone else.
Friday the Redhead. This particular Easter egg was delivered almost completely in passing when Tony Stark was chatting with his new AI, Friday, about what went down in Vienna in Captain America: Civil War. Stark asked if Friday had run facial recognition on Helmut Zemo. After it was discovered he was merely posing as psychiatrist Theo Broussard. The AI sarcastically replied by saying, "What do I look like?" as if to suggest it was a stupid question, because of course she's already done that. Seeing as Friday doesn't look like anything, Tony simply replied that he figured she was a redhead. Friday's response was to say that Stark must have been thinking of someone else, which in this case was probably his on-off girlfriend in the MCU, Pepper Potts. But for devout Marvel fans, it was also a cool reference to the comic books. In the comics, Friday is sometimes represented physically by a holographic projection, and the holographic projection in question really does have red hair. You can decide for yourself whether or not you think Civil War's writers did that intentionally, but it's pretty cool regardless of that if you're familiar with Friday from the source material.
So what happened to the real Broussard?
He was found dead in a Berlin hotel room, where police also found a wig and facial prosthesis approximating the appearance of one James Buchanan Barnes.
The director cameo. So we just briefly referred to Theo Broussard in the previous entry, but this entry is all about him. Broussard was the psychiatrist hired by the Joint Counter-Terrorist Center to interrogate Bucky Barnes after the incident in Vienna in Captain America: Civil War. But he was killed by Helmut Zemo, who proceeded to impersonate him and take advantage of that by using Hydra's trigger words to activate the Winter Soldier. Well, not long after Tony Stark had finished fighting against Captain America's Anti-Accords team at Stuttgart Airport, he received some crucial information from Friday that we referred to earlier, regarding the fact that the power blackout and rampage of Bucky was no accident and that Zemo had planned it all, and that Broussard was lying dead in a bathtub at a Berlin hotel. At around that point in the movie, photographs and footage of Broussard's were shown, and they were actually footage and photographs of Joe Russo, one of the movie's directors. It wasn't Russo's first cameo in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that he had jointly directed with his brother Anthony. He had previously appeared as Nick Fury's personal physician in 2014's Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
So why is Michael so happy? Because he's decided to never speak to these people again.
The STAIR truck. The Russo brothers really are completely owning the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. Having previously directed 2 brilliant movies in Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Captain America: Civil War, they're now directing this year's epic Avengers: Infinity War and its as-yet untitled 2019 sequel. But before they were blockbuster movie directors, the brothers got their major break into the television world with their work on the incredibly popular Fox series Arrested Development. The two were famously recruited to direct the pilot episode of the show back in 2003, which they used to set the tone of its now iconic offbeat comedy and family dynamics, and it deservedly won them an Emmy. Arrested Development's Bluth family may be a million miles away from being MCU heroes, but the Russo brothers made sure their presence was felt in Captain America: Civil War. During the movie's memorable team battle sequence at Stuttgart Airport, the Bluth's one-of-a-kind vehicle could clearly be spotted parked up in the background. It was visible at the point when Ant-Man decided to pick up a miniaturized water truck to use as a projectile, and you can easily spot the unmistakable red, blue, and white paint job from a mile away.
Click, can you get him off me?
Buckled in?
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm good, Arrow guy. Let's go, let's go!
The Hawkeye Ant-Man team-up. Scott Lang was like a starstruck little boy when he first met Steve Rogers after being recruited to join his team in Captain America: Civil War. He got his words mixed up and shook the super soldier's hand for far too long, but once the fighting got underway, he proved in no uncertain terms how valuable his shrinking powers could be in a superhuman battle. The most daring and ambitious attack that he was a part of came with the help of Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, as Lang was fired skywards towards Iron Man at the tip of an arrow. It was an ingenious way of getting the tiny hero inside the armor in order for him to wreak havoc, but it wasn't something the writers of Captain America: Civil War came up with. The idea was taken straight from the cover of 1982's The Avengers number 223. Hawkeye and Ant-Man are very different characters in the movies to how they are in the comics, but the claim made on that issue's cover is indisputable even in the MCU. When Ant-Man and Hawkeye joined forces, somebody's gonna get it. And on that occasion, it was poor old Tony Stark.
He's my friend. So was I.
Captain America vs. Iron Man. The final fight between Captain America and Iron Man in Captain America Civil War was full of Easter eggs. The moment when Iron Man's repulsor blast hit Captain America's shield was clearly a nod to the Civil War graphic novel, where the exact image was used off the front cover. But there were some other major nods to their comic book battle. When Iron Man used his AI to analyze Cap's fighting pattern, it was definitely a direct nod to the on-panel version of the fight, because Tony Stark did exactly the same thing on that occasion in order to get the upper hand. Cap also knocked off Tony's helmet, which was very similar to what happened in the comics. There was also a nod to two moments from the first Captain America movie from 2011. When Cap was taking something of a beating from Iron Man, he stood up and said, "I could do this all day." This was a direct reference to him saying those exact words during a fight against a bully in a New York backstreet prior to being injected with a super soldier serum, and when Red Skull was giving him a beating towards the end of the movie.
Futurist, gentlemen! The Futurist is here!
The Futurist. When Captain America Civil War came to an end, most of Captain America's anti-registration team found themselves imprisoned in the superhuman prison known as the Raft. Sam Wilson, otherwise known as Falcon, Wanda Maximoff, otherwise known as the Scarlet Witch, Scott Lang, otherwise known as Ant-Man, and Clint Barton, otherwise known as Hawkeye, were all locked up for rebelling against the Sokovia Accords. Tony Stark decided to pay them a visit, but he wasn't exactly a welcome visitor. Stark was greeted with mock applause by Barton, who announced to his fellow inmates that the Futurist had arrived. The obvious thing to assume from those words was that he was taking a shot at Stark's ego, given that Stark claimed to know where the future was headed and what outcomes were most likely to happen. But it actually meant more than that. It was also a clever reference to the title of Robert Downey Jr.'s debut music album, which was released back in November of 2004. Futurist was a jazz and folk album that also featured a single with the same name that RDJ co-wrote, and it's actually pretty good, assuming you're into that kind of thing.
If you need us. If you need me. I'll be there.
And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? What other important details did you notice in Captain America Civil War? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos just like this one. Adios!